Chapter 217. A pot of ginger water was quickly cooked and Elvis scooped a small bowl for Gu Mengmeng to drink. After Gu Mengmeng drank a bowl of ginger water, she felt much more comfortable. She pushed the bowl to Elvis, letting him drink a bowl to warm his body. Elvis was a little hesitant. This was Gu Mengmeng's medicine, how could he eat it? Gu Mengmeng smiled. These 2 pieces of ginger could be boiled for an entire day, she just had to throw some snow into the pot after drinking it. Gu Mengmeng guaranteed again and again that the ginger in the cave was enough for her to use for an entire winter, only then did Elvis reluctantly drink a bowl. This was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted in the world, a sense of bliss spread throughout his body. After drinking the ginger water, Gu Mengmeng fell into a deep sleep once again. In her dreams, she felt that she had returned to her university dormitory bed. The white furry bear at the head of the bed was smiling at her. She hugged the big bear in her arms and rubbed her face against its fur. Satisfied, she rode on the big bear and fell asleep. But the reality was that Elvis was originally sitting at the side of the bed, but was pulled onto the bed by Gu Mengmeng with his beast-skin dress. His beast-skin dress was torn off by her, while his naked body was ridden in her arms. His entire body was so stiff that he did not dare to move, afraid that he would make her feel uncomfortable in her sleep. The cave was dark, there was almost no trace of time in this cave. The snow sealed the entrance of the cave so tightly that Gu Mengmeng and Elvis did not even know whether it was night or day outside. Gu Mengmeng did not know how long she had slept, but when she opened her eyes again, her fever had subsided, and she was lying on Elvis's body like an octopus in a hooligan position. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while, would it be less awkward if she screamed and retracted her hand, then put the blame on him instead? The answer was obviously no. There were still a few months left for her to be alone with Elvis. If she gave such a reaction now, it would probably be even more awkward in the future. So should she hug him in her arms like how Princess Janning slept with Wei Xiaobao and say, "From today onwards, you are mine, I will treat you well"? She sized up Elvis's physique. Yeah, it's a little difficult to hug him. Just when Gu Mengmeng was in a dilemma as to what kind of attitude she should take to face this awkward situation, Elvis spoke first. "Are you thirsty? I'll get you a bowl of ginger soup." Oh, all right. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head, her eyes darting around awkwardly, not daring to look at Elvis. Elvis kissed her forehead and said, "You have to let go of me first before I can scoop the soup for you." Gu Mengmeng then realized that she was still stuck to Elvis's body, so she bounced back as if she was electrocuted and wrapped herself tightly with the beast skin. Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and laughed dryly. "I don't sleep well, especially when I have a fever. My brain is in a mess from the fever. I'm not like this usually, really." Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng and said, "I don't sleep well, especially when I have a fever." Elvis walked back with the soup and blew on it to cool it down before sending it to Gu Mengmeng's mouth. He smiled warmly and did not say a word. Chapter 218. Gu Mengmeng almost choked to death on her own saliva. She looked at Elvis sadly and thought to herself, "Your words are not comforting me at all right?" Elvis touched Gu Mengmeng's face and slowly heaved a sigh of relief. "It's not burning anymore, that's great." Elvis's relieved look warmed Gu Mengmeng's heart. So this was how it felt to be treasured and cared for by someone. The fire in the cave had long been extinguished. Gu Mengmeng sat up from her blankets and could not help but shiver. She felt a little cold. Just as she was about to crawl back into the blankets, Elvis had already carried her in his arms. "The blankets won't be warm after being lifted. You can't catch a cold again, it's better if I carry you," Elvis said as he took a piece of wood from the side and started a new fire. "Are you hungry? I'll cook for you." Once Elvis said that, Gu Mengmeng's blood instantly boiled and she said agitatedly as if she was injected with chicken blood, "No, calm down, don't try to cook anymore." Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng as if the pause button had been pressed. They were too close and Gu Mengmeng felt immense pressure from his stare. She blinked and said, "What I mean is, leave such small matters like cooking to me in the future and don't do it yourself." Elvis sat down with his legs crossed and said formally, "Females should be taken care of and shouldn't be involved in such matters." Gu Meng Meng gave a bitter smile helplessly and poked Elvis's head, saying, "How exactly did you establish this feudalistic mentality of valuing females over males? It died out early in the morning and now it's the era of equality between males and females, understand?" Elvis shook his head honestly and his serious face made Gu Meng Meng lose her temper. She sighed and said, "It's very tiring for a person to take care of another person unilaterally." So. Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis with an enticing and expectant gaze, indicating for him to continue her sentence. Elvis pursed his lips and seemed to be struggling for a while. Then, he looked at the entrance of the cave which was sealed by the snow and said slowly, "So, you should have two partners. If Leah is also here." Gu Mingming's face darkened and she raised her hand to make a stop gesture. She said unhappily, "Leah has already decided to be with Nina. He might be busy giving birth to little Leah now. I can't possibly go to Nina's bed and snatch her away just because I lack a cook, right? Moreover, you've also seen Lee's attitude towards me now." Gu Meng Meng felt suffocated and she hammered her own chest with force. She forced herself to calm down before continuing, "It was not easy for me to let him go. Can you not mention him anymore?" Elvis remained silent and lowered his head. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the pile of yellow roots at the side of the cave. Wasn't that Lee's attitude towards Xiaomeng? Gu Meng Meng felt that she had gone overboard in reprimanding Elvis, so she calmed herself down and stood up from Elvis's arms. She wrapped the beast skin around her even tighter and sniffed her slightly clogged nose before saying, "Isn't it just cooking? I'm very good at it. Next time you go hunting, I'll cook. This is called the male takes care of the outside while the female takes care of the inside. Although at my place, female takes care of the inside is already a thing of the past, but considering the actual situation here and my own condition, I've decided to give up the right to be a strong woman. I'll just stay at home and be a housewife." Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Shaoxiang Academy, Shengxianya, for your comments. Wen has always maintained 5 stars. I'm so happy, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, don't lose and don't forget asterisk, for her tips. Recently, the most frequently asked questions in the comments: 1. Author, will you give up? Answer, the author is a good scammer. No one even read the last article and I persevered to finish writing 1,000,000 words. Moreover, this article is going to be published in January. Before it's published, I have to sign a contract with the website. If I give up, I'll face a lawsuit. Most importantly, my great editor is always holding a kitchen knife and a small leather whip and staring deeply at me. I have no doubt that if I dare to give up, she will chop me into a human meat bun. 2. Why are there fewer updates recently? Chapter 219. Elvis carried Gu Meng Meng along with the beast skin again and said, "The ground is cold." Gu Meng Meng did not resist, the ground was quite cold. "I don't know what equality the males and females in your world are pursuing, I only know that my female cannot be wronged. You cannot have less of what others have. At least what Bode and the rest did for Sandy, I will do the same for you. I want you to be the object of everyone's envy forever. Because you are the messenger of Saint Nazir's beast deity, and more importantly, because you are my female." Gu Mingming's little heart was thumping non-stop. She cupped her hands and looked at Elvis with an intoxicated expression, asking, "Are you still the husky that eats raw potatoes? What's with this domineering CEO style? Did you secretly read romance novels behind my back?" Gu Mingming's current expression was exactly the same as when they first met, and this was Elvis's favorite expression. The corners of his lips curled up and Elvis lightly planted a kiss on Gu Mingming's forehead, saying gently, "Be good and stay in my arms. You talk and I do the cooking, it's considered cooperation." Gu Meng Meng thought about it. she really did not want to reach out to dig the snow that sealed the entrance of the cave to wash the vegetables, so she smiled unkindly and said, "Then you should heat up the snow before washing the vegetables, or else it'll be too cold." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's furry little head and said, "Silly girl, I'm a wolf, I'm not afraid of the cold." Gu Mengmeng hung onto Elvis's neck like a little monkey, her little hands caressing his pectoral muscles restlessly. She pondered seriously for a long time but still could not figure it out, so she asked Elvis shamelessly, "You don't have any fur after you transform into a human, aren't you afraid of the cold?" Elvis was a little embarrassed to ask, "You don't have any fur after you transform, aren't you afraid of the cold?" Elvis shook his head and answered, "My fur didn't disappear, I just can't see it anymore. It doesn't affect the warmth, so you don't have to worry." Gu Mengmeng gave him a thumbs up and exclaimed from the bottom of her heart, "Awesome." Under Gu Mingming's instructions, Elvis barely made a pot of food that could be swallowed. Actually, even though Elvis was the one who made it, Gu Mengmeng was still the one in charge of the cooking, while Elvis only washed the vegetables and cut the potatoes. He could only be considered as an assistant. It couldn't be helped. His cooking talent had already broken through the sky, and he could cook anything into a dark cuisine. The pot of black stewed fish with ginger and the rabbit that had been roasted into a tire had left a lingering fear in her heart. She really did not have the courage to try again. After they were full, Elvis placed Gu Mengmeng back into the warm blanket, then washed the pot and boiled another pot of ginger water. This was the only recipe he had mastered so far. A pot of water, 2 slices of ginger, cook for a day. Gu Mengmeng patted the side of the bed, signaling Elvis to come up and sleep with her. After Elvis warmed himself up, he laid down beside her and used his arm as a pillow under her head. He lowered his head and quietly watched her fall into a deep sleep. Gu Mengmeng, who was in his arms, slept peacefully like a child. She was defenseless and peaceful. His long eyelashes formed a silhouette under his eyes, and his even breathing was hotter than usual, presumably because he had not recovered from his cold. Her warm breath landed on Elvis's chest, and waves of numbness spread throughout his entire body. His nostrils were filled with the sweet scent of her body. She was clearly as quiet as an angel, but Elvis could not help but have some kind of reaction. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby, Big Banyan Tree, for your recommendation vote. Then, what am I going to write in the next section? Are you guys mentally prepared? Chapter 220. Elvis's breathing became heavier. The strange changes in his body made Elvis very uneasy. He felt that something was stirring in his blood. He instinctively wanted to turn around and press Gu Mengmeng down to bully her fiercely. But this little one was still sick and he could not bear to disturb her sleep. Moreover, he remembered. She said, she doesn't want to mate. Elvis tried his best to control his own emotions. He wanted to stop himself from letting his imagination run wild. But Gu Mengmeng was in his arms and there was really nothing else in this cave that could divert his attention. He suddenly could not remember how he spent those long years before he met Gu Mengmeng. Lowering his head, Elvis placed his lips on Gu Mengmeng's forehead and kissed her carefully. He had clearly done this countless times when she was awake. And it was done openly and naturally. He was very sure that Gu Mengmeng did not reject this kind of kiss. But at this moment, because of this little stolen kiss, his heart was surging and he could not control himself. His blood was boiling in his body and Elvis could feel it. After this kiss, his blood was like the boiling ginger water in a pot. That heat almost evaporated his entire body. Elvis frowned. He had wanted to make use of this smell to satisfy himself. But now, it seemed like he had outsmarted himself. Not only did the fire in his heart not weaken, it burned even more vigorously. It had become the flame devil in his spiritual world and he could not resist it at all. Gu Mengmeng moaned unknowingly. She was unhappy that her sleep was disturbed. She pushed away the thing poking at the top of her knees in protest. But that unknown thing stubbornly bounced back to its original position. It was even more panicky than before. Gu Mengmeng twisted her body. She wanted to find a comfortable angle to avoid that annoying thing and continue sleeping. But she did not know what kind of torture her unconscious movement was to Elvis. The feeling of exploding on the spot. So this was what it felt like. Gu Mengmeng realized that no matter how she adjusted her position, she could not avoid that thing that was hindering her sleep. She moaned even louder. Her eyebrows were squeezed together and she looked like she was about to cry but could not. It was as if she was playing the song Ambush from 10 Sides on Elvis's already tensed nerves. Elvis used his hands to hold Gu Mengmeng in place, not allowing her to continue provoking the fire in his heart. He said in a low, hoarse voice, "Stop fooling around, I don't want to break my promise to you." Gu Mengmeng replied in a daze. Elvis took a deep breath and looked at Gu Mengmeng, who was obviously still asleep with her eyes closed. He said as if he was talking to himself, "I promised you that I will only pledge my loyalty to you when you are willing to mate with me. I want to keep every promise I made to you, so, stop pestering me, go to sleep, and stop messing around." Gu Mengmeng did not know if she understood Elvis's words, but she gradually quietened down. But even if she did not move at all and fell asleep like a porcelain doll, her allure to Elvis did not diminish at all. He desperately wanted to have her, so he hugged her even tighter and pulled the distance between them infinitely closer until it was negative. Elvis knew that he should shatter the snow blocking the entrance with one punch, then go out to cool down in the cold wind. But he also knew that Xiao Meng could not be left out in the cold anymore. Moreover, he could not bear to let go of her. This kind of torment seemed to have made him addicted and he was willing to sink into it. Digression, once again, I feel that I am not her biological mother. Chapter 221. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had fallen asleep, Elvis was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable being pinned down by him, so he slowly let go of his hand. But the moment he let go, Gu Mengmeng seemed to be even more dissatisfied. She frowned and whimpered before snuggling into his arms again. But this time, the thing that was pressing against Gu Mengmeng's thigh was obstructing her sleep again. Gu Mengmeng was extremely annoyed. She closed her eyes and reached her hand down to touch it, wanting to see what demon was so daring as to disturb her sleep. Her fair and soft little hand covered Elvis's sensitive nerve endings. Every inch of touch was magnified countless times. Elvis groaned, clenching his teeth to suppress his desire. He arched his back, trying to break free from Gu Mengmeng's demonic grasp. But Gu Mengmeng had not figured out what was obstructing her sleep, so how could she let go? Seeing that the demon was about to escape, her little hand exerted force and grabbed him tightly, holding him in her hand tightly. Gu Mengmeng snickered in her sleep, "Little guy, even if you are Sun Wukong, you can't escape from my 5 Fingers Mountain. If you dare to disturb my sweet dreams, see if I won't suppress you under the mountain for 500 years. By then, Sun Wukong will also become a monkey head mushroom." Thinking about this, Gu Mengmeng revealed a naughty smile in her dream. But Elvis was in a terrible state, pain. No, it was itchy. Not really, it was painful and itchy, comfortable and torturous, longing and resisting, anticipating and uneasy. Elvis could not describe what he was feeling right now. He only knew that this strange yet familiar feeling made him want to bite this troublemaker to death. But when he brought his mouth to hers, he could not even bare his fangs in front of her. He could only kiss her gently and sigh, "You are such a torturous little vixen." Gu Mengmeng clearly had no intention of letting Elvis go. Her other free hand also moved forward and touched it carefully. This touch, ham sausage. Which brand of ham came in this size? Was it Jinhua ham? But that was not right. Why was the ham sausage hot? Who would heat up a ham sausage in the microwave before eating? Moreover, why was it jumping and jumping like that? It could move, damn, a bug. A mutated caterpillar. Thinking of this, Gu Mengmeng suddenly opened her eyes. Before her brain could react, she let go of her hands and retreated far away. She posed like Yuan and looked at Elvis in fear. When she finally calmed down and woke up from her dreams, Gu Mengmeng was totally dumbfounded. Elvis laid on the side of the bed, looking as if he had been harmed by someone. His clothes were disheveled and his face, which was always so cool, was filled with embarrassment and unbearable pain. There was a blush on the tip of his ears, making him look very attractive. His thin lips were pressed into a straight line, his dark green eyes looking at Gu Mengmeng lovingly. If he were to match his current appearance with lines, he wouldn't even know what to say. "You bastard, don't come over." All right, it would be more appropriate to add, "Dear customer, come on." The worst part was that the sky-supporting pillar was too eye-catching. Gu Mengmeng instinctively looked at her own hand and compared the size. F*ck me. Elvis had been observing Gu Mengmeng's expression the whole time. Seeing the entire process of her face turning from red to white to red and then back to black, his emotions had already flown back and forth in the sky countless times. Elvis actually felt a sense of shame as he was being scrutinized by her naked body. This feeling made him want to flee, but he did not do so. On one hand, he knew that the cave was only so big, where could he escape to? On the other hand, in his heart, there was a sense of anticipation that firmly fixed him on the spot, making him unable to move. Aside from the topic. Chapter 222. I won't take responsibility. Gu Mengmeng's brain heated up as she shouted. Then, she grabbed the beast's skin and covered her head with it, turning around and pretending to be an ostrich. But Elvis suddenly heaved a sigh of relief, as if he was laughing. Gu Mengmeng could not see Elvis's expression, she just felt her face burning up. She knew that this analogy might not be appropriate, but according to the Beast World's concept, she had done a solid job on Elvis this time. Looking at it from another angle, it was equivalent to a male idol being kept by a female fan in the modern world, eating and drinking from her and enjoying all the luxurious treatment. Then, on a dark and windy night, he stripped the female fan naked and touched her all over. The female fan thought to herself, "This is going to be the end, right?" But the damn male idol suddenly stopped, retreated and said, "Don't think too much, I only treat you as a friend." Shameless, too shameless. The more Gu Mengmeng thought about it, the more she felt like a jerk in a melodramatic television drama. No. Even a jerk would not be like her. He was after all a scam for money and sex, a one-stop service. She was now a scam for money and not sex, receiving money but not doing anything. She lifted the blanket abruptly and wiped her mouth fiercely, staring at Elvis. "You, come over. I have decided to take responsibility." This time, Elvis was the one who was dumbfounded. Take responsibility. Elvis carefully and cautiously repeated these two words that made his heart beat wildly. Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and made up her mind, saying, "Yes, I will take responsibility." "What the heck, if I don't take responsibility after touching you, I will become a damn hooligan." Elvis suddenly smiled and moved forward with great difficulty. Because a certain part of his body was swollen badly, this small movement was extremely difficult for him now. Elvis leaned his upper body forward and laid beside Gu Mengmeng's legs, with both his hands supporting himself against the bed frame. He was a head shorter than Gu Mengmeng and he looked at Gu Mengmeng with a 45-degree angle. Squinting his blue eyes, he asked with a lustful smile, "How do you intend to take responsibility?" Gu Mengmeng almost bit her own tongue at Elvis's question. Hardening her heart, she hugged Elvis's neck and tucked him under her armpit like a female bandit, avoiding the face that made her blush and her heart beat rapidly. She purposely raised her voice to make herself sound heroic. "From today onwards, you are my man. In the future, as long as I eat, I won't miss a bite from you." Elvis's gaze gradually blurred as he laid on Gu Mengmeng's lap. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng and asked, "So, have you decided to mate with me?" Gu Mengmeng choked on her own saliva. She cleared her throat and made up her mind, saying, "Yes. Isn't it just mating?" "Yes." Elvis used his elbow to support himself on the bed and flipped over to press Gu Mengmeng down. His scorching breath blew towards her and the orange flames danced, dyeing the side of Elvis's face red. His fingers slowly brushed past Gu Mengmeng's face. His gaze was blurred and affectionate as he asked with a slightly hoarse voice, "So, you are willing now, right?" Chapter 223. The meat that was already in her mouth, not eating it. Elvis smiled slyly and leaned forward to kiss Gu Mengmeng's lips. He was so greedy that he could not stop himself. He sucked on the fragrance and sweetness in her mouth and only released her reluctantly when Gu Mengmeng was almost out of breath. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's flushed face, Elvis kissed the side of her face lightly, followed by her ear. That ambiguous voice that could make one go crazy traveled into Gu Mengmeng's ears. "See, like this, you won't cough anymore." Gu Mengmeng's emotions had long been messed up by Elvis's kisses. She panted heavily to suppress her frantic heartbeat and placed her little hand on Elvis's chest. She shook her head with difficulty and said, "But I'm not ready yet." Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng's little hand to his lips and kissed it. His other hand gently tidied the strands of hair on her face. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a determined gaze and said, "As long as you are sure that you like me and are willing to have me, leave the rest to me." Gu Mengmeng's heart was beating without any rhythm. At this moment, it was no longer a matter of missing one or two beats. She only felt that her heart was switching between the two melodies of "Waiting for You to Love Me" and "The Cowboy is Busy." At times, it was slow and powerful. With every beat, she could clearly feel a huge amount of blood rushing into her brain. At times, it was frivolous and joyous. It was beating so fast that she could not even breathe smoothly. The inexplicable nervousness and uneasiness made her want to reject him. But there was a mysterious force that was guiding her to secretly taste the forbidden fruit. Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng's little hand to the back of his waist. Her little hand, which had turned cold due to nervousness, wrapped around the back of his waist. He supported Gu Mengmeng's ear with one hand and stroked Gu Mengmeng's silky hair with the other. He lowered his head and kissed her lips lightly. It was a fatal temptation. "Tell me, do you like me?" Elvis asked. Gu Mengmeng felt as if all the nerves in her body had gone numb. Her hands did not belong to her and neither did her legs. Her brain could barely decipher Elvis's message, but she did not know how to reply. She reacted faster than her brain. Even Gu Mengmeng herself was shocked. She actually nodded her head so honestly. Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips again as a reward. The hand that was in her hair slowly supported the back of her head, while the other hand that was supporting her ears slowly moved downwards, wrapping around her waist. With a little bit of force, her whole body was tightly pressed against his, leaving only a small gap. "Then, there's only one question left." Elvis pressed his lips against Gu Mengmeng's little ears and whispered slowly, "Do you want me?" Gu Mengmeng's eyes were misty and her pupils were dilated. She was sure that she was conscious, but she just could not concentrate on thinking. Gu Mengmeng recognized a fact. She liked Elvis. It was the kind of love a woman had for a man. Elvis had always made her feel safe. No matter what the situation was, he would prioritize her feelings and stand behind her regardless of right or wrong. He had never given up on her and never made her worry for even a moment. She had never even thought that this man would leave her one day, so, when Leah confessed to her, she agreed without any hesitation. At that time, she was already very clear. Someone like Leah, if he did not hold on to her tightly, he might just abandon her at a certain junction. But Elvis would definitely not do that. Even if she were to date someone else, he would not leave her. "Ha, Gu Mengmeng, you really raised a good spare tire." Gu Mengmeng despised herself harshly in her heart, spitting on her scumbag behavior. Frowning, she looked at Elvis in front of her and felt her heart ache. Because of her selfishness, Elvis must have suffered a lot. Answer me, do you want me? Elvis felt the change in Gu Mingming's gaze. His large hand covered Gu Mingming's little hand, which was cupping his face. He held her little hand tightly in his palm and said with his last bit of rationality, "As long as you say that you want it, I will give you all my loyalty without any reservations." Gu Mingming's expression changed. Elvis's eyes were fixed on Gu Mingming, his blue eyes filled with anticipation and urgency. He wanted to own her. This was almost an instinct that surged in his bones and blood. But in order to wait for her willing, he had been suppressing the desire to possess her. Now, he had reached the limit of his tolerance. Not only was his body about to explode, his remaining rationality was also about to explode. "If you can't promise, as long as you nod your head or give me a little hint, I will understand." Gu Mingming's heart twitched violently. Elvis, who was so cool, was actually so lowly in front of her. Once they mated, it was equivalent to Elvis offering his entire life. There was no way back or chance for regret. But even so, he was willing to be a partner without any promises, just to not force her to say, "I want you." Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and took the initiative to offer her lips to him. It was just a light peck, then she slowly moved back, distancing herself from him. She said in a gentle voice, "At my place, you have to say, 'I love you,' when you confess, 'I love you' when you propose, and 'I love you' when you mate." Elvis's body trembled violently, uncontrollably. His breathing was rapid and unstable. He kissed Gu Mingming's lips back and bit them harshly, as if this was the only way to confirm that every word he heard just now came from this little mouth. Kissing Elvis until he tasted the sweetness of Gu Mingming's blood, he then raised his head while panting heavily. He stared into Gu Mingming's eyes and said with utmost caution, "Gu Mingming, I love you. Are you willing to mate with me?" Gu Mingming smiled and retracted her little hands. She took off her clothes that were so messy that they could no longer cover her body and displayed her beauty completely in front of Elvis. She blushed shyly and faced Elvis's gaze. She did not avoid it, nor did she try to brush him off. She answered seriously, "Elvis, I love you. I will give myself to you, and from now on, I will treat you as my pride, my sky, and my husband. As long as you don't leave me, I will stick by your side in life and death. If you are in danger, I will use my life to protect you." Gu Mengmeng wanted to continue, but Elvis's eyes were already brimming with tears. He kissed Gu Mingming's lips again with extreme gentleness, extreme love, and extreme everything. To put it simply, Gu Mengmeng had become Elvis's female. Be it physically or mentally, they had reached an unprecedented level of tacit understanding and resonance. Aside from the topic, considering the issue of harmony, the 2,580 words of detailed description will be omitted here. For more information, please enter the group to view the group sharing. Chapter 224. Elvis restarted the fire and placed the stone pot with the ginger water aside. He changed it to a bigger one and dug out many snow cubes to boil in the pot. After heating the water to a warm temperature, he started to clean Gu Mingming's body. She was obviously extremely tired and did not seem to have any intention of waking up no matter what Elvis did. Elvis was afraid that she would be left out again, so his actions were very swift. After cleaning her up, Elvis quickly crawled into the blanket and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms, using his body heat to keep her warm. He could hear Gu Mingming's even breathing, and his nostrils were filled with the sluggish breath after the pleasure. The rare desire that he had to lay low seemed to be making a comeback. Elvis shut his eyes tightly. He knew that Xiao Meng could not withstand a second round of torment. She had to rest, have a good rest. After breathing for a while, Elvis managed to control the situation with his rationality. He poked the little person in his arms lightly and his gaze landed on her collarbone. Elvis's gaze became scorching and gentle. it was a tenderness that could melt the entire body but only warmed her. When Gu Mengmeng finally woke up, she felt as if she had been run over by a truck and her entire body was in pain. Holding onto her waist that was almost broken, Gu Mengmeng let out an "I-oh" and could not say anything else. Elvis handed over a bowl of warm water at the right time and said, "Moisten your throat, you're hoarse from all the shouting." The moment Elvis said that, the pleasure replayed in his mind like a movie that could not be turned off. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide into and become an earthworm. It was too damn embarrassing. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng so that she could lean against his chest and not have to use so much effort to support her aching body. Gu Mengmeng's back was pressed against Elvis's chest. Elvis's arms circled around Gu Mengmeng's chest and he brought the warm water to Gu Mengmeng's mouth, saying, "I've tried it, the temperature is just right, drink some." Gu Mengmeng wanted to take the bowl but Elvis dodged and pecked her face, saying, "Now, I have the right to take care of you. You can't push me away anymore, understand? I'm not used to being fed like this." Gu Mengmeng said in a hoarse voice. Elvis nodded and brought the bowl to his lips, drinking a mouthful of water. He then used his other hand to pinch Gu Mengmeng's chin and passed the water into her mouth. Gu Mengmeng's face flushed and she choked on her saliva. She coughed twice and wiped the water from her mouth. She stared at Elvis and asked, "What are you doing?" But Elvis replied with a matter-of-fact expression, "You're not used to feeding like that, so I'll change to a method you're more used to." Elvis stared and said, "I'm even more uncomfortable." But Elvis rubbed her little head dotingly and said, "I'll get used to it slowly." Gu Mengmeng choked for a moment, but facing Elvis at that moment, she could not bring herself to be stubborn. She thought to herself, "Wait till my aching back and cramping legs pass, see how I set rules for you." But Gu Mengmeng, she lowered her head and said, "I think I'll get used to it faster." Elvis smiled and did not say a word. He brought the bowl to Gu Mengmeng's mouth again. Gu Mengmeng instinctively used her hands to hold the bowl again, but Elvis pecked her face again. Gu Mengmeng froze and quickly put her hands down. She then obediently drank the water Elvis fed her. Digression, author's perspective. Outside Elvis's cave, a piece of snow moved slightly. If one did not look closely, it would be hard to notice that there was a snow fox lying there. Males and females were at their weakest during mating. There was almost no chance of survival if they were attacked. So, under normal circumstances, females would choose 2 to 3 partners during their coming-of-age ceremony. One of them would be the first partner, while the other would guard the entrance of the cave to prevent any accidents from happening. Gu Mengmeng only had Elvis as her partner. Even though there was not much chance of danger during the snowy winter, Leah still rushed over. He did not dare to transform into his human form, afraid that he would not be able to control his expression. But he did not know that even though he looked like a fox now, his gaze could not lie. A drop of crystal-clear liquid flowed down from the corner of his eye. Before it reached his chin, it had already frozen. He should be happy, right? Gu Mengmeng and Elvis finally made it successfully. His wish came true. But his heart ached. Chapter 225. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and gasped in surprise. Pushing the water bowl to one side, Gu Mengmeng stared at her own collarbone in shock for a moment. She reached out and rubbed her collarbone, then rubbed her eyes. She was sure that what she saw was not an illusion. A lifelike black wolf was standing on her collarbone, raising its head to howl at the moon. The combination was exquisite. Her collarbone was like a cliff, and the wolf was proud and aloof. Gu Mengmeng looked at the pattern on her collarbone and then at Elvis. She then lowered her head to look at her collarbone and then looked up at Elvis again. She repeated this many times. Gu Mengmeng suddenly frowned and said angrily, "You actually tattooed me while I was asleep." Elvis did not know what tattooing meant, but he roughly understood that she was referring to the wolf totem on her collarbone. Seeing that she did not seem to like it, Elvis was actually very hurt. Not wanting her to see through his emotions, Elvis pretended to be calm and said, "This is a mating mark. You will have it after mating." Gu Meng Meng thought about it, and indeed, it should not be a tattoo. Even if she was in a deep sleep, it was impossible for her not to know that a tattoo was so painful. Moreover, a new tattoo would need to swell for at least 10 days to half a month before it goes down. It was impossible for it to not hurt after being tattooed. So she smiled apologetically and said, "I was not fully awake and my brain is not working well. I was spouting nonsense, please don't mind me." Elvis forced the corners of his lips and said faintly, "It's not strange that you don't like it. After all, compared to a black wolf, you like snow foxes more." Gu Meng Meng almost bit her tongue. "Your new husband started discussing your ex-boyfriend with you in the East. Was he going to bring up the past?" Who said I don't like it? I like it very much. Look, how cool it is." Elvis pulled Gu Meng Meng into his arms and gently rubbed the mark on her collarbone with his fingers. He said, "Although it is not on your heart, I am already very satisfied that it is here. After all, I initially thought it would be on your ankle or arm. I did not even dare to think that it would be so close to your heart." Gu Meng Meng also lowered her head to look at the wolf on her collarbone. Thinking that it was Elvis's incarnation, her heart warmed. She asked, "Don't you feel that you look very handsome standing here? I've seen wolf kings standing like that in movies. It's so domineering and mighty." Elvis caressed her collarbone and said, "As long as it's on your body, no matter where. I'm very satisfied." Gu Meng Meng leaned into Elvis's arms and watched as his fingers caressed her collarbone. She asked, "No matter where? The mating mark isn't in a fixed place." Elvis held Gu Meng Meng's little hand and hugged her up. He kissed the side of her face and answered, "The position of the mark depends on how important a male is to a female. The closer the male was to the heart, the more the female liked him. In an ordinary family, the female was the core, followed by the first partner. The next position was determined by the position of the mark on the female's body. Basically, the closer the mark was to the heart, the higher the status. If a male could leave a mark on a female's heart, then even the first mate of the family would be wary of this male." Chapter 226. Gu Meng Meng sneaked a peek at Elvis. Although he hid it very well, Gu Meng Meng could clearly feel that he was actually a little disappointed in his heart, right? On the night of their wedding, anyone would not feel good to find out that he was not the one his wife loved the most. Gu Meng Meng turned around and faced Elvis face to face. She cupped his handsome face with both hands and stared straight into his eyes that were as blue and as deep as the night sky. She said word by word, "You know my views on marriage, right?" Elvis's heart was hit hard. Blood rushed to his head and he nodded his head slowly and stiffly. Gu Meng Meng retracted one of her hands and slowly touched the mating mark on her left collarbone. She said, "Although it is not branded on my heart, I feel that this is the most suitable place for it. Because in the future, everyone will be able to see our mating mark every day when I wear a dress. I want to announce to the whole world that you, Elvis, are my man and only mine. From today onwards, if anyone dares to have any ill intentions towards you, I will make sure that the hand that reaches out will not be able to return." Gu Meng Meng made a gesture of raising her hand and slashing it down. She even raised her head in a domineering manner. Elvis's heart had never been so warm before. Just because she said that he was willing to display this mating mark in front of everyone, to tell everyone that he was her male. Elvis smiled knowingly and hugged Gu Meng Meng's shoulders, pulling her back into his arms. Looking at her pressing the side of her face against his chest in an obedient and docile manner, his iron heart melted into a puddle of water. Lifting Gu Meng Meng's chin lightly, Elvis smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, if we want everyone to see it, it's not very convenient to put it on my heart." Gu Meng Meng smiled too. Actually, in the modern world, deep V's were very common, but for someone with a voluptuous figure like her, when others wore fashionable deep V's, she would look like a prostitute. As a result, she would usually wear a conservative big round neck, causing her voluptuous figure to look a little bloated under her clothes. This was also the reason why she did not even ask for the WeChat number of the swimming club's male god even though she had been drooling over him for a long time. She listened to the sales lady's recommendation and bought a bikini that accentuated her figure. She wanted to run to the swimming club to meet the Prince Charming. If that Prince Charming really came to flirt with her after seeing her bikini, then that Prince Charming's character would really be, Luckily, she had transmigrated here by accident, or else she would have become a dead man. Gu Meng Meng wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and listened to his strong heartbeat. She suddenly remembered something and asked, Meng Meng, Gu Meng Meng. Elvis did not understand what she was asking and replied with a single word. Gu Meng Meng straightened her body and checked Elvis's body carefully. But she could not find her own mark, so she asked, Where is my mark on your body? Why can't I see it? Elvis rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head and said, Silly girl, a male's body will not leave a female's mark. Why? Gu Meng Meng thought to herself that it was not fair. Other people's wedding rings came in pairs and she had never heard of couples' tattoos that only belonged to one person. Why was it that in the beast world, something as important as the mating mark was only left on females? Gender discrimination. This was blatant gender discrimination. Aside from the topic. Chapter 227. Elvis had gradually gotten used to Gu Meng Meng's specialness. There were many common knowledge in the beast world that she did not know. Thus, Elvis enjoyed the warmth of hugging Gu Meng Meng while explaining, leaving the male totem on the female's body is for protection. When you meet with danger or difficulties, just hit this totem hard and I will be able to sense where you are. Then, I will immediately rush to your side to save you. Elvis used his finger to lightly point at the mark on Gu Meng Meng's collarbone and said, This is connected to here. Gu Meng Meng looked at her little hand being placed on his chest by Elvis and felt warmth in her heart. She smiled sweetly and lowered her head back into his arms. She placed the side of her face on the back of his hand and felt the warmth and peace of mind. Elvis used his other hand to hold Gu Meng Meng's shoulder gently and fixed the beast skin on her body. He then continued, But if the male has the female's mark on him, the female will feel pain when the male meets with an accident. If possible, the male would rather die quietly. It would be best if there are other partners who can coax the female so well that she does not even realize that she has lost one partner. In this way, she can always live a carefree life. Gu Meng Meng really felt that she had nothing to say. She looked at Elvis with an expression as if she had eaten *T and said, Then how sensitive are the females? How can they not know that their husband has died? Elvis smiled as he recalled the title that Gu Meng Meng had said. He had cheated her to call him that once before. Now, could he openly receive this title? Gu Meng Meng did not know what Elvis was laughing at. She elbowed him and said, What are you laughing at? I'm asking you a question. How can there be someone who doesn't know that her husband has died? Elvis hooked Gu Meng Meng's chin with his finger and said, That means, you have not used this title to call me before. Ah. Gu Meng Meng's mind was filled with the thought of a widowed female who did not know that her man had died. So, she could not keep up with Elvis's pace. She tilted her little head and looked at Elvis in a daze. My mark has already been imprinted on your body, you should at least give me the title you are supposed to give me, right? Elvis gently caressed her collarbone, his eyes filled with anticipation. Gu Meng Meng thought for a moment before understanding what Elvis was saying. She cleared her throat and looked at the stone pot that was boiling water at the side. She whimpered out two indistinct words, hubby. Elvis pinched Gu Meng Meng's little chin and forced her to look into his eyes. The shyer she was, the more eager he was. A pair of blue eyes seemed to contain the profoundness of the entire universe. He looked at Gu Mingming's clear eyes and said, "I can't hear you clearly, what did you say?" "Hubby." Gu Mingming's voice became even softer. Unable to avoid Elvis's eyes, Gu Mengmeng could not get used to their status as newlyweds and felt even more embarrassed. Her throat was stuck together and she could not shout clearly no matter how hard she tried. But Elvis refused to let her off just like that. He gently shook her little chin and said word by word, "Can't hear clearly." Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and swallowed her saliva. She closed her eyes and shouted, "Hubby, hubby, hubby." Chapter 228. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while. Including Bailey, who had just mated 2 days ago, there should be a total of 7, so she answered Elvis honestly. Elvis asked again, "Then do you know how many partners Maya has?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and smiled awkwardly. Then, she shook her head honestly and said, "I am really not that close to Maya. She used to be with Nina." Although she did not bully Sandy directly, she did watch from the side for a long time. Sometimes, silence is scarier than violence. She is also a half-orc and I can understand that she does not have the ability to protect Sandy. But I can't accept her staying quietly by Nina's side. It's just that I don't want to offend anyone and cause the 4 females in the tribe to be at odds with each other. By then, the entire Saint Nazir will not have peace. So, although I don't want to form a grudge with her, I'm not too close to her either. Elvis brought Gu Mingming's little hand to his lips and kissed it. He said, "Don't make things difficult for yourself. You don't have to socialize with people you don't like. If anyone has any dissatisfaction, tell them to look for me." Gu Mengmeng fiddled with Elvis's fingers and said sweetly in her heart, "But I am the wife of the tribe leader now. I have to look at the big picture, right?" Elvis smiled and looked at Gu Mengmeng with a pair of affectionate eyes. He said, "You, just take care of yourself. I will look after the big picture." Gu Mengmeng smiled and twisted her body. Then, she suddenly raised her head and pecked Elvis's face. She said, "You have a sweet mouth. Let me reward you." Elvis licked his lips and thought to himself, maybe he should go and eat more yellow gravy. Wouldn't he get more rewards this way? Gu Mengmeng was a little shy. She exclaimed and asked, "Then how many partners does Maya have?" Elvis answered, 15. Gu Mingming's mouth turned into an O, so wide that an egg could fit in it. She repeated in confusion, "How many?" 15. Elvis nodded and gently lifted her little chin to close her mouth. He then continued to ask, "Then guess again, how many partners does Nina have?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while. There was only Quentin whom she could call by name, plus Leah who should have mated by now. There were 2 of them. There were 7 that were injured by Leah at Sandy's doorstep previously. Adding the one she rode on every time she went out, there should be 10 of them. Every time, there would be some males that Gu Mengmeng could not remember the faces of, so there should be 17 to 18 of them. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while, then stretched out 2 fingers and said, 20. Elvis shook his head. Gu Mengmeng stretched out another finger. 30. Elvis still shook his head. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and stretched out another finger. 40. Elvis raised his eyebrows and answered, 43. What the heck? Gu Mengmeng was truly shocked for once. There were 43 of them. If he took one a day, he wouldn't be able to finish his turn in a month. Elvis pushed Gu Mingming's little chin again and said, "Other than Quentin and a few partners who were stronger than her, I'm afraid she herself doesn't even remember the names of those males who had pledged their loyalty to her. In her eyes, those males are the hunters who provide food during the rainy season, the continuous supply of water during the dry season, and the stored food during the winter." Gu Mengmeng sighed in her heart and felt that it was not worth it for Nina's partners. Gu Mingming's heart twitched as she thought of Leah. Aside from the topic, the first day of 2018 I've decided to treat my babies better. It's midnight today, to celebrate the new year. Chapter 229. The moment Gu Mengmeng thought of Leah, she forced herself to divert her attention. Now that she had already mated with Elvis, no matter what the rules were in the beast world, at least she herself could not accept the so-called polygamy system. Mental infidelity was also considered infidelity. Even if others did not know, Gu Mengmeng knew that she could not get past herself. So she took a deep breath and changed the topic, but I don't see any partner marks on Nina's body. That's because she's a female that was banished from the tribe. Elvis snorted in disdain, then continued, Nina was originally the only complete female in her previous tribe, but a half-orc female accidentally gave birth to a complete female cub. That cub quickly displayed her kindness and beauty, attracting the attention of the new generation of males in the tribe. Nina felt that her position was threatened, so she asked Quentin to kill that pair of mother and daughter. Gu Mengmeng was so angry that she could not find another word to express her anger. Damn it, was Nina's brain filled with maggots? She already had 43 partners, and she still killed a child because of jealousy. Elvis nodded his head, indicating that it was true. Then he continued, Quentin was originally very strong, and with the advantage of being able to fly, sneak attacks were his trump card. Taking advantage of the fact that the males of the family were unprepared, he grabbed the mother and daughter, flew into the sky, and then dropped them to their deaths. When the female died, the males would die from the backlash of the mating contract. So that entire family died just like that. Gu Mengmeng said in disbelief, I always knew that Nina had a twisted personality, but I didn't expect her to be so twisted. Just because her child was beautiful, she had to kill her entire family. Pervert. Elvis caressed Gu Mingming's little face gently, so although she was a precious complete female, her original tribe did not dare to keep her anymore. In the beast world, no matter what mistakes a female committed, they cannot be killed. So Nina herself did not have to pay any price. But Quentin, as the executor, naturally had to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, and Nina's other partners would be executed as accomplices. Gu Mengmeng truly felt wronged for Nina's partners. Why would they rather be single for 10,000 years than marry such a scourge? Elvis continued, I'm not sure how many partners Nina had at that time, nor did I ask. They only knew that the tribes which doctor had consulted the beast deity and came to the conclusion that Nina would only be forgiven if her partner died in the same way as the half-orc female's male. Therefore, one of Nina's partners personally gave Nina the talisman water to wash away the mating marks, and watched her drink it without hesitation. Then, they watched as the mating marks on her body disappeared bit by bit, and all of them rotted to death bit by bit. Until he turned into a pool of blood, the eyes of the partner who gave Nina the water talisman were still looking at Nina affectionately. His last words were, as long as you can live well, that's enough. Then why is Quentin alright? Gu Mengmeng asked. Because at that time, Quentin had not mated with Nina yet. Nina said that she would only accept Quentin into her family if he killed the mother and daughter for her. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Shaoxiang Academy, Siki 924, Ear 7107, QQA 97 Bob 2F. For the flowers, and Wawa Little Frog for the comment votes. Thank you to the little babies who have been accompanying Susu in 2017. Thank you for despising me, ridiculing me, and loving me at the same time. Chapter 230. Gu Mengmeng was so speechless that she did not know what to say. No wonder Quentin was Nina's first partner. Nina's previous partners had all died because of her. Then how did this scourge come to Saint Nazir? Gu Mengmeng asked in disdain. Quentin, who came down from the platform of the deity's punishment, mated with Nina as he wished. Then, he brought the banished Nina away from their original tribe. There was a half-orc female in that tribe who was very good friends with the half-orc female who had died. In order to avenge her dead friend, she ordered all her males to block Nina and Quentin outside the tribe. Quentin's wings were injured in the battle and he could no longer fly. Then, he came to Saint Nazir. At that time, Saint Nazir only had 2 half-orc females, Sandy and Maya. Although Nina was notorious, she was still a precious complete female. In addition to Quentin's outstanding abilities, Leah suggested that I take them in. Gu Mengmeng laid quietly on Elvis's knees and listened to his story. She did not interrupt and just listened quietly. Elvis trusted Lee's judgment very much, so he took Nina in without any hesitation. The truth also proved that Lee's decision solved almost half of Saint Nazir's mating problems. Elvis tidied Gu Mingming's hair and continued, because of that special water, Nina could no longer brand the mark of a male on her body after mating. This was the punishment from the beast deity, she could no longer receive the protection of the beast deity. As for Quentin, although Leah healed his wings and allowed him to fly temporarily, it was impossible for him to lift heavy objects into the sky again. So, when he went to assassinate you, he did not throw you down from the sky. You escaped because of that, but you still stood up for Quentin like a fool. Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt that her actions were indeed stupid. She laughed at herself and did not reply. Elvis tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and continued, "Do you think that a female like Nina would realize if one or a few of her partners were missing?" Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt a little regretful, but still shook her head. Elvis smiled and said sadly, "Indeed, she would not realize at all. And Nina's situation is a common situation in the beast world. Sandy is a special case, she only mates with males she likes, so she has very few partners. And this is also one of the reasons why Nina does not like her and always bullies her." Gu Mengmeng then understood that Elvis was actually answering her earlier question after beating around the bush. If all the females in the beast world were like Nina, then it would be so pitiful for the males. Gu Mengmeng took the initiative to jump into Elvis's arms and hugged him tightly, saying, "You're my husband, the only husband in this world." Gu Mengmeng, Gu Mengmeng, Shin longer, Gu Mengmeng, and Gu Air. Gu long said, "Not." S Gu God, Sheaf Li Wang S long S U 4. U 4 Chu Mo. Chu Li S Chu. Chapter 231. Gu Mengmeng opened her mouth and bit Elvis's shoulder harshly. Pain, it was not too painful, but Elvis still kept his mouth shut and did not finish his sentence. Gu Mengmeng bit so hard that her cheeks hurt, but she only left a shallow bite mark on Elvis's shoulder. She rubbed her sore cheeks in frustration, then glared at Elvis angrily and said, "If you dare to die outside, I will knock my head against the wall and die in this cave. I will haunt you even as a ghost, twist your ear and ask you, where did you get the guts to abandon me?" It was the first time in Elvis's life that he was attacked, but he did not crush the other party to death. What was even more amazing was that he could not feel any anger at all. Instead, a sweet feeling filled his heart. He hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and said gently, "I am very strong. For you, I will become even stronger." Gu Mengmeng then smiled and kissed the place where she bit him just now. She said, "That's a good boy. Today is after all our big day of mating. It's so inauspicious to die. I want you to live with me for a long time." Elvis said and touched Gu Mingming's little head lovingly, saying, "Xiao Meng, you have to promise me one thing." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Elvis. Elvis paused for a moment and continued, "If one day, I really meet with some danger that I can't come back from, don't knock yourself to death. You have to protect yourself well and replace me to live for a long time, do you understand?" Gu Mengmeng was angry and turned away, ignoring Elvis. Elvis hugged her from behind and his voice was still gentle, with a hint of pleading. He said, Only you can make me be willing to risk my life in a battle. You live well, that is my biggest wish. Promise me, at least, let me die in peace. Gu Mengmeng got angrier the more she heard. She turned around and pulled Elvis's ear, asking, "What? We just made it and you're already planning to make me a widow. I told you not to say it, but you still insisted. If I don't let you know how powerful I am, you'll think that I'm made of paper, right?" Elvis cooperated and cried out in pain, begging for mercy that he would never do it again. Only then did Gu Mengmeng let go. She looked at Elvis's reddened ears and rubbed them with heartache. "Are you stupid? Won't you run away if I pinch your ears?" Elvis held on to her little hand that was rubbing his ear and pulled it to his chest. Then, he smiled and said, "But I don't want to leave you, not even one step." Gu Mengmeng smiled and leaned into Elvis's arms. Rumble rumble, a familiar yet awkward sound came from Gu Mengmeng's stomach. Gu Mengmeng clutched her stomach and looked up at Elvis with an eager smile. "You must be hungry, I'll go cook." Elvis did not stop Gu Mengmeng. With his appetite, the food Gu Mengmeng made could not fill him up. But he did not want to tell Gu Mengmeng about this, because he could save more food for her. Gu Mengmeng ran into the depths of the cave happily. Elvis had carried her here a few times, so she probably knew where everything was placed. Roasted sweet potatoes, sweet and delicious roasted sweet potatoes. Gu Mengmeng squatted at one side and picked 2 moderately sized sweet potatoes from the pile of sweet potatoes that were as high as a small mountain. She was prepared to put them into the fire pit to roast later. Fire, Gu Mengmeng suddenly thought of something. This was the depths of the cave and the light from the fire at the entrance could not possibly shine in. Then Gu Mengmeng lowered her head to look at the 2 sweet potatoes in her hands. She could even clearly see the cracks on the skin of the sweet potatoes. F******. Golden finger. Aside from the topic, Gu Mengmeng's first golden finger, night vision was activated because of her mating. To celebrate, she made a small scene. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and sat in front of the cave, looking up at the sky. Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis's hand and said, "Hubby, count the stars with me." Elvis nodded and looked at the dazzling stars in the sky. He counted slowly, 1, 2, 3. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis's hard work and suddenly laughed. "Forget it, you're too stupid and not suitable to count the stars. How about this, I'll count the stars and you count the moon." Chapter 232. Gu Mengmeng held a sweet potato in each hand and shouted loudly with her bare feet, "Aw!" She dragged her voice as she ran towards Elvis. Elvis was shocked by Gu Mengmeng's roar. By right, there should not be any danger in the cave, so why was she screaming so miserably? Elvis's actions were much faster than Gu Mengmeng's, so Gu Mengmeng had only taken a few steps when Elvis had already leaped in. He met her face to face and without saying a word, he pulled her into his arms and looked around warily. He was sure that this was his cave. There was no smell of outsiders in the cave, not even a bug. But Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng suspiciously. She was holding back her big red face and staring straight at him. She held a sweet potato in each hand and gestured excitedly. "Xiao Meng." Elvis patted her back lightly, then took the big sweet potato from her hands and asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng panted heavily and said with a grin, "Look, what's this?" Elvis did not understand, but still answered honestly, "Sweet potato." Gu Mengmeng nodded her head excitedly and said, "Yes, this is a sweet potato." Elvis still did not understand what Gu Mengmeng was so excited about. He could only look at her quietly and wait for her to catch her breath before continuing. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the sweet potato at the side and said, "This is a sweet potato." Then, she turned her head and pointed at the other side and said, "There's a pile of potatoes there." Then, she pointed at the other entrance of the cave and said, "That cave has our preserved meat, and Elvis suddenly understood. He hooked Gu Mingming's little chin lightly and turned her little face towards him. Then, he asked softly, "Can you see me now?" Gu Mengmeng nodded her head excitedly and threw away the other sweet potato in her hands. Then, she used her finger to trace Elvis's outline and said softly, "This is Elvis's eyebrows, this is Elvis's nose, these are Elvis's eyes, and here." Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's face with both hands and offered her own lips. She kissed him lightly and then continued, "This is Elvis's mouth." Elvis smiled as he held the back of Gu Mingming's head and kissed her lips back. He only released her after a long while. "This is the proof that you are the messenger of the beast deity," Elvis said. "What?" Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng with one hand and easily picked up the 2 sweet potatoes she had picked out with the other hand. He said while carrying Gu Mengmeng out, "Only the messengers of the beast deity can inherit special abilities from their partners." Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. Gu Mengmeng frowned, clearly unable to understand. Elvis continued to explain patiently, "Normally, although females are much weaker than males, they still have the usual abilities, such as the ability to see in the dark, the ability to transform, the speed of running or the sharp claws and teeth. They had all the abilities they inherited from their sire, so they would not inherit their partner's abilities. On the other hand, the messenger of the beast deity is the exact opposite. You did not inherit any abilities from your father beast, so your body is like a vessel, still empty. You can inherit some of your partner's characteristics." Chapter 233. Elvis did not know who a husky was, but he heard Gu Mengmeng call him that a few times, so he thought that maybe in Gu Mingming's original world, a wolf's nickname was a husky. So he nodded his head seriously and said, "I only heard Leah mention a little about the beast deity's messenger being able to inherit the partner's abilities. After all, it was 1,000 years ago and we don't know to what extent we can inherit it. But you can try and see if you can become a husky." Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she laughed dryly, then she shook her head and said, "It's better not to try, I don't want to become a dog." Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little chin and corrected her, "It's a wolf." Gu Mengmeng twitched her lips and replied, "I don't want to become a wolf either. What if I can't change back after I transform?" Don't. Elvis did not force her, it was already a good thing for him that she had inherited his vision. At least he did not have to worry about her accidentally bumping into anything when she walked in the cave in the future. That was enough. As for speed, strength and even attacking ability, it was enough for him to have it. It was Gu Mingming's first time trying to move around freely in the dark. The joy and excitement in her heart made her unsatisfied with being carried in Elvis's arms. She struggled to get off the ground and Elvis did not stop her. He just found 2 thicker pieces of beast skin to wrap her little feet up and let her run around in the cave. He just followed behind her and smiled at how she found everything she saw to be novel. He smiled faintly. She had to admit that Elvis's cave was really huge. Gu Mengmeng had never been so deep in the past, or rather, she had been here before, but she had no impression of it at all. Because once she left the space near the entrance of the cave, she would be blind with her eyes open. Elvis would carry her wherever he went and she would not know where she was at all. But it was different now, everything was so clear to her. This feeling was too realistic and Gu Mengmeng was so happy that she was about to fly. Humph humph humph, Gu Mengmeng hummed a tuneless little tune and entered the self-exhilarating mode of exploration. Every time they entered a deeper cave, Gu Mengmeng would feel a wave of nervousness and excitement. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng up gently and asked with a smile, "Aren't you hungry? Do you want to go eat something first and come back later to continue watching?" Gu Mengmeng was having fun, how could she retreat now? She shook her head and took out 2 pieces of dried fish from her pocket. She placed one in her mouth and chewed it for a while before sending the other piece to Elvis's lips. "I took this from that house just now. This is for you." Elvis did not take the dried fish from Gu Meng Meng, but instead, he took another bite of the piece that Gu Meng Meng had bitten off, following the bite marks left by Gu Meng Meng's teeth. He imitated Gu Meng Meng's way of chewing, before nodding his head in a serious manner. "Yeah, it's really delicious." Gu Meng Meng bashfully punched Elvis's chest, then scolded, "Annoying," before running deeper into the cave. For the next half a month, Gu Meng Meng was in an extremely excited state. She could suddenly see everything in the dark, which made her feel extremely curious. Elvis's acupuncture point was also big enough. She struggled to stay in different rooms every day, and Elvis had to help her carry the small bed that was made from 2 big pieces of solid wood. Although this kind of carrying was meaningless, Elvis felt that nothing was more blissful than accompanying her to do these meaningless things that could make her happy when he saw Gu Meng Meng's smiling face. Chapter 234. Xiao Meng. Elvis laid on the side of the bed and circled Gu Meng Meng in his arms. His fingers brushed past her cheeks, full of love and cherishing. He hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "Can you sing a song for me too?" Gu Meng Meng smiled and nodded. Then, she sat up and looked at Elvis. After thinking for a moment, she cleared her throat and sang, "I close my eyes and breathe next to your heartbeat. And now, we are the only ones left on earth." The melody was melodious and every note carried Gu Meng Meng's sweet feelings at that moment. Her fingers gently tangled with Elvis's ink-like long hair, twisting it in her hands before releasing it slowly. When she sang, "Love you, love you, love you, we will always be together," she even paused and secretly kissed Elvis's lips before continuing to sing. She would not ask Elvis why he suddenly wanted to listen to her sing, because she did not ignore the word "also" that Elvis said. After coming to the beast world, Elvis was the third person who could make her open her mouth to sing. The first was Sandy. Guojing's Dowry had already become her exclusive song. The second was Leah. She did not expect him to sing the song, "A Little Luck," back then to suit the situation. Elvis naturally would not use the word "also" on Sandy. He was definitely referring to Leah. When Gu Meng Meng finished singing this song, Elvis seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. How afraid was he that Gu Meng Meng would reject him and not sing a song for him. How afraid was he that Gu Meng Meng would sing a sad song again. But luckily, Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng back into his arms and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Gu Meng Meng replied, "This song is called Love You. The original singer is Qin Fangyu. When I first heard it, the variety shows in Taiwan could still be watched in the Celestial Empire. She went on the variety show to do publicity. She had a small stature, but her explosive power was shocking. She was definitely in the opening song series. But when I listened to the official version, it was not as infectious as the live version. But it was still very nice to listen to." Elvis still did not understand a large part of Gu Meng Meng's words. But even so, Elvis still felt very happy to see her talking about her past with such vigor. The past that he didn't have the chance to participate in, even if it was just a little, made him feel a little closer to her. Crack, crack. An inharmonious voice sounded. Gu Meng Meng did not notice it, but Elvis's entire body tensed up. He pulled over a beast skin and wrapped her up. Then, he looked at the direction of the cave with his guard up while saying, "Hide in the cave where we store our salted fish. Unless I come to fetch you, don't come out no matter what you hear or see." Gu Meng Meng did not know what was going on and was confused by Elvis's nervousness. She turned around and asked while being hugged by Elvis, What's wrong? What's going on? Why did you hide it?" Chapter 235. Gu Meng Meng did not know what had happened, but she decided to trust Elvis. Thus, she wrapped herself tighter with the beast skin that Elvis had wrapped around her body and walked deeper into the cave. She sat at the place where the dried fish were stored and looked at the frozen dried fish in the cave. She then looked worriedly at the sealed entrance of the cave. She could see things in the dark, but her eyes were not X-rays. It was impossible for her to see what was happening on the other side of the sealed entrance. Fortunately, the cave was not completely silent. A loud sound made Gu Mengmeng shiver. She was familiar with this sound. It was Elvis's wolf howl. Could it be that Elvis had transformed to make such a sound? What was going on? Why did Elvis suddenly transform? Could it be that it was the 15th full moon night? Was Elvis's wild beast blood awakening? Or, split personality? Just like in Seven of Me, where Elvis with a violent personality appeared. Just as Gu Mingming's thoughts were running wild, she heard a loud bang. It was as if something had landed heavily on the pile of soil that Elvis had used to seal the entrance of the cave. Gu Mingming's head buzzed. No, Elvis was not the only one outside. This was the sound of a fight. Didn't they say that the snow had sealed the mountain and no one would come out of their cave? Why would someone suddenly barge in? Gu Mengmeng was extremely worried. She laid on the pile of soil and used her hands to dig at the sealed entrance. She desperately wanted to know what had happened outside. The soil that had been frozen at an extremely low temperature was hard and cold. Gu Mengmeng dug until her hands were covered in blood before she managed to dig out a small hole that was the width of 2 fingers. Compared to the light, a gust of cold wind passed through the small hole faster. Gu Mengmeng endured the discomfort in her eyes and squinted at the small hole to look outside. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9 ferocious wild beasts were fighting with Elvis. They were entangling and biting each other, and there were already 2 to 3 deep wounds on Elvis's back that exposed his bones. His flesh was flipped outwards and blood flowed out continuously. His black fur was dyed red by the blood, looking hideous and glaring. Gu Mengmeng instinctively covered her mouth to prevent herself from making a sound. She knew that Elvis wanted her to hide in the cave of the salted fish so that he could use the smell of the salted fish to cover up her scent. And in this situation, if she appeared, not only would she not be able to help Elvis, she would also cause him to fall into a more passive and dangerous situation. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and forced herself to calm down. She needed to think carefully about how she could help Elvis. At the other end of the hole, Elvis bit onto the hind leg of one of the enemies. With a forceful shake of his head, he tore the leg off the wild beast's body. Blood sprayed all over Elvis's face, making him look like a ferocious demon that crawled out from hell. The other party did not have the slightest bit of fear towards his partner's attack. Instead, he quickly replaced his position and continued to trap Elvis firmly in the middle. Chapter 236. Gu Mengmeng felt a wave of disgust. She retched twice but nothing came out. She could only squat under the small hole and panted heavily, trying to calm herself down as quickly as possible. Originally, we didn't know that your cave was here. But just when we were almost frozen to death, we heard a magical and beautiful melody. Listen, it should be the voice of a female. That person said while revealing a greedy expression. His black and red tongue licked around his mouth, then he started chewing on the leg bone that no longer had any meat left. Gu Mengmeng was shocked. Could it be that her singing attracted the enemy? Gu Mengmeng really wanted to slap herself to death. Why did she have to sing for no reason? Even if Elvis wanted to listen, she could just lie beside his ear and sing quietly. Why did she have to sing so loudly? Was it to show off her voice? Look at this, you've brought disaster upon yourself. At the same time, Elvis had already bitten off the throat of another wild beast. The head rolled to the man's feet and was kicked out of the cave mercilessly. The man nodded approvingly. Looks like we've met a tough opponent. Elvis transformed into a human, only maintaining his fangs and right hand in beast form. He had never fought like this before. This inspiration came from Lee's fox tale that he revealed when he was coaxing Gu Mang Mang. Elvis spat out the dirty blood in his mouth and said, "If you guys only want food, I can give you some meat. Together with these two idiots, it should be enough for you guys to last till the next tribe." That man was also very curious about Elvis's battle form. He sized him up for a long time before saying, "You're actually a half-orc." "Ha, looking at your moves just now, I thought you were at least a second-level beast in human form. I didn't expect you to be a half-orc, ha 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 ha, good, good." That man suddenly laughed out loud and stood up. With a lewd expression, he said, "Why don't you hand over your female and let her break off the partnership with you, then join us? Don't worry, I'm very fair as a leader. I'll return your female to you after I'm sick of playing with her. Other than the fact that you guys aren't bound by the partnership contract, everything else will be the same as now. How about it? Not bad, right?" Elvis stared coldly at the person who spoke. He was expressionless, the kind that did not have a single trace of emotion. He took a step forward and the remaining 7 wild beasts blocked him. Both parties were in a deadlock and the tense atmosphere was like the calm before the storm. Even Gu Meng Meng could clearly feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis. After transforming into human form, the 2 wounds on his back looked even more ferocious, forming a sharp contrast with his jade-white skin. Like a blooming poppy, it did not make him look weak at all, but instead made him look even more wild. The blood dripping down from his waist seemed to be announcing how dangerous its owner was. "If I kill him, you'll have another portion of food." Elvis stared straight at the man who claimed to be the leader and did not transform to participate in the battle. However, his words were clearly meant for the thugs surrounding him to hear. Chapter 237. The 7 wild beasts surrounding Elvis exchanged glances and slowly took half a step back. This meant that they had reached an agreement. Elvis glanced at them and nodded to express his approval. Then, he slowly walked towards the man who claimed to be the leader. That man also threw away the leg bone he was chewing halfway and stood up to stretch his neck. He was still smiling in an extremely disgusting manner. Gu Meng Meng swore that she had seen so many television dramas but she had never seen an antagonist with such a repulsive face like this fellow. Sure enough, there was a difference between a real bad guy and a fake bad guy. Interesting, interesting. The man shook his head and transformed into a huge tiger, pouncing towards Elvis with a roar. Elvis dodged the tiger's attacks sideways and at the same time, he used his sharp claws to attack the tiger's abdomen. The tiger seemed to be prepared for it. Its tail, which was as thick as an arm, curled around Elvis's arm and swung it. The half of its body that was stretched out actually stepped on the wall and spun back, blood spurting towards Elvis's face. Elvis's lips curled up and he actually smiled. The tiger knew that things were not good but it could no longer stop. Because it was not his tail that had wrapped around Elvis's hand, but Elvis's hand that was tightly grabbing onto his tail. He actually sent his own tail into his opponent's hand. A second before the tiger got close to him, Elvis lowered his body and transformed his entire head into a wolf. He opened his mouth and used his sharp fangs to lock onto the tiger's throat. All his actions were fast, accurate and ruthless, without a single bit of sloppiness. Crack, crack. 2 consecutive sounds of bones breaking could be heard and the tiger's head drooped down in a weird position, hanging by Elvis's mouth. The murderous aura in Elvis's blue eyes had yet to fade away when he suddenly realized that there was a small hole in the entrance of the cave that he should have blocked. The eye that peeked out from behind the small hole, he recognized it. His heart froze and Elvis loosened his mouth. That tiger fell limply onto the ground. The 7 wild beasts that were his accomplices just a moment ago pounced forward and started to divide the tiger's corpse. Elvis straightened his back and said coldly, "Saint Nazir does not welcome stray beasts. Take your food and leave. Otherwise, you will become my reserve food for this winter." The 7 beasts looked at each other. The reason why this tiger was the boss was because the 7 of them couldn't beat him. However, the black wolf in front of them had easily killed him. In other words, they were absolutely no match for him. The front paws of the 7 beasts were prostrating in a submissive posture. Elvis raised his hand and flicked his fingers twice, indicating that they could scram. Only then did the 7 wild beasts hurriedly drag the corpses of their comrades that had become food out of Elvis's cave. Accompanied by the howling of the storm, the sounds of the wild beasts fighting for food gradually faded away. Elvis and Gu Meng Meng stared at each other with that piece of soil between them. It was as if time had stopped working here and they were in a state of being paused. Elvis, you're hurt. Gu Meng Meng regained her senses first. She dug at the soil in front of her with all her might while saying, "Don't move, I'm coming over now. I'll dig through this place very quickly, don't move recklessly." Chapter 238. Gu Meng Meng wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and felt a wave of warmth in her hands. Her eyes teared up and she said in a sobbing tone, "You're hurt, you're hurt." Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng tightly, who was trying to break free from his embrace, so hard that he could not help but tremble. After a long while, he said in a voice that sounded like hot sand grinding against iron, "Don't leave me." Gu Meng Meng could not break free and was so anxious that she started crying. She stomped her feet and wanted to punch Elvis but was afraid of touching his wound, so she just waved her hands and said, "Are you an idiot? I'm already yours. Where else can I go? Let me go and let me see your wound." Elvis's body stiffened. He carefully held onto her shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Just now, you saw me kill that stray beast, right? Which one?" Gu Meng Meng was anxious to see the injuries on Elvis's back, but Elvis refused to let go no matter what. Gu Meng Meng was so anxious that she jumped up and down. I saw it, I saw it, I saw all 3 of them." "You aren't afraid?" Elvis's expression was as if he was treading on thin ice, his blue eyes filled with uncertainty. Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis as if she was looking at an idiot. "If you don't kill them, they will kill us. I'm not Tripitaka, I don't have the hobby of improving the food of demons. Don't you think I'm cruel?" Elvis was surprised by Gu Meng Meng's answer. He clearly remembered how she cried when she saw others injured and bleeding on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony when Leah was guarding the tower. He knew that she did not like violence, did not like killing, did not like blood. But she had just witnessed that cruel and bloody scene with her own eyes. The moment he met her eyes through the small hole, his heart suddenly tightened. He could almost see Gu Meng Meng's face of disgust, and he even felt that she might leave him because of this. But she said, "If you don't let me check the wound, do you believe that Lil Miss is crueler than you?" Gu Meng Meng steeled her heart and stepped on Elvis's foot, twisting her foot with force, saying, "Let me tell you, when I get angry, even I am afraid of myself. Hurry up and let go of me. I want to check your wound." Gu Meng Meng's little strength was nothing to Elvis. However, his heart was so warm. Gulp. Gulp. A resurgent heartbeat came from his left chest and Elvis felt the blood that had congealed start to flow again. Hugging her tightly in his arms, he took a deep breath and said, "Xiao Meng, thank you. Thank you." With that, Elvis's body suddenly went limp and he slid off Gu Meng Meng's body. Gu Meng Meng wanted to catch Elvis but she did not have enough strength. The most she could do was to slow down his fall to prevent a second injury. "Elvis? Elvis, how are you? Don't scare me." Gu Meng Meng patted Elvis's face but he did not react at all. What to do? What to do? Gu Meng Meng was so anxious that she was going around in circles. She should not have learned human resource management in the first place. She should have gone to a nursing school to learn nursing. Chapter 239. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head fiercely and said with a sobbing tone, "Leah, hurry and save Elvis." Leah maintained his faint smile and stood at the cave entrance without moving. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, "After all, we are love rivals. If he dies, it would be a good thing for me." "Leah!" Gu Mengmeng shouted his name with a hoarse voice. Leo was taken aback, he almost could not maintain the smile on his face. This was the first time Gu Mengmeng looked at him with such eyes and called his name with such a tone, for another male. Leah used 2 breaths' time to barely calm himself down before continuing, "So, if you want me to save him, you have to promise me 3 things. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and said, "All right, as long as you can save him, I can even promise you 300 things, not to mention 3. Leah nodded and took a step into the cave, saying, "The first condition is that I want to stay here this winter." Before Gu Mengmeng could speak, Leah continued, "Elvis needs to be taken care of. You can't possibly make me run around in this snowstorm, right?" Gu Mengmeng looked at the howling snowstorm outside the cave and nodded. "Elvis's cave is very big, it doesn't lack a place for you to sleep." Only then did Leah heave a sigh of relief. Then, he took another step inwards and said, "The second condition is that when winter ends, the snow at the entrance of the cave will naturally melt. You have to sing, 'A Little Happiness for Me' every day as repayment for treating Elvis." Gu Mengmeng wanted to reject him, she knew what this song meant to both of them. Leah had already mated with Nina and she was already Elvis's woman. Was it appropriate for her to sing this song now? What was the point? But looking at Lee's "if you don't promise me, I will leave now" attitude, Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and said, "All right, I will sing." Leah took the 3rd step forward and came to Elvis's side. He slowly squatted down to the same height as Elvis and looked straight into her eyes. "The last condition, I want you to call me Daddy Leah every time you talk to me." Elvis nodded his head and said, "I want you to call me Daddy Leah." Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and said, "You haven't taken enough advantage of me. Don't push your luck. Food, lodging, and entertainment services are provided. Our consultation fee should be considered quite a lot, right?" Lee's gaze darkened and there was a slight change in the curve of his lips. He could not help but clench his fists, but he did not dare to let Gu Mengmeng discover anything amiss. He tried his best to maintain the smile that she loved, using the calmness that she loved, to grind his heart into pieces and mark a cinnabar mole for her. He murmured softly, "Once upon a time, you and I were also we. What's the point of talking about this now? Just tell me, are you going to save him or not?" Gu Mengmeng screamed at the top of her lungs. "If you don't agree, I won't save you." Leo looked at Gu Mengmeng, not giving in at all. He wanted to know if she would agree to do something she was unwilling to do for Elvis. At that moment, Lee's emotions were also very complicated. He hoped that she would agree, but was also afraid that she would really agree. "All right, Daddy Leah, Grandpa Leah, Ancestor Leah, I beg you, save my hubby." Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis, who was covered in blood, and looked at Leah with determination. In her eyes, she could no longer find the infatuation, shyness, naivety and liking him. Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading baby, Xiao Wang, for tipping 100 reading points. And thank you to the little baby from the Portrait Academy, Constellation Love XST, for giving this article a 5-star review. Then, Daily Group Expansion. For 92779273 originally, the group could only accommodate 500 people, but because I was lazy and did not want to open a second group, I increased the capacity to 2,000. So the problem now is the lack of management personnel. Chapter 240. Leah did not speak, not because he did not want to, but because he could not open his mouth. These days, all he could think about was reuniting with Gu Mengmeng. He endured every long and difficult second, even guarding outside the cave for Elvis and Gu Mengmeng's mating. He could clearly hear her every moan, every cry of pain, and every time she felt pleasure. That was undoubtedly a form of torture. The only belief that supported him was that Elvis had finally become her first partner, so he could return to her side. As long as she was willing to nod her head, as long as she still wanted him, he could be with her forever. But the reunion that he had fantasized about countless times had never been like this. Her eyes could no longer reflect his image. Her expression was only one of rejection and resistance. That Daddy Leah that disturbed his heart in his dreams at night was now like a sharp sword stabbing into his chest. The pain was nothing more than that. Leah suppressed his discomfort and checked Elvis's wound carefully, then did emergency treatment. He could clearly tell from Gu Mingming's expression how much she cared about Elvis. If Elvis had any intentions, he would undoubtedly lose her, forever and completely lose her. That night, Gu Mengmeng curled up beside Elvis and fell asleep. As for Leah, he sat quietly by their bedside for the entire night. The next day, Gu Mingming's first reaction when she woke up was to touch Elvis's forehead. Only after confirming that he did not have a fever did she secretly heave a sigh of relief. She carefully lifted up the beast's skin and looked at the hideous wound on Elvis's back. The blood had stopped flowing and the wound was showing signs of healing. There was no infection, thank God. Gu Mengmeng was about to boil some water to wash up when she saw Leah slowly walking in from the space near the entrance of the cave where Gu Mengmeng and the rest used to stay. He leaned against the wall and said, "I've prepared the water for you to wash up. I've made grilled fish and potato soup for breakfast. Go eat some to fill your stomach first, in case you fall sick again before Elvis wakes up." When Gu Mengmeng saw Leah, she was taken aback. Perhaps it was because she was still in a daze, her mind was in a mess, as if she did not understand why Leah would appear here. Leah sighed and continued, "You know, to the tribe, females are far more precious than males. So once you fall sick, I will definitely prioritize taking care of you. In that case, Elvis's condition would definitely be more neglected. If you don't wish for Elvis's injuries to not be taken care of properly, you better try your best to take good care of yourself. Don't distract me." Gu Mengmeng patted her own face to keep her mind clear. Then, she nodded to indicate that she understood. She took an extra piece of beast skin and wrapped it around herself. The beast skin Elvis had previously given her to wrap her feet had also been modified into a pair of suggested leather boots a few days before those stray beasts charged in. Although it wasn't as exquisite as the ones on Taobao, the material was solid, and it was warm and comfortable. Gu Mengmeng turned sideways and walked past Leah. From the start to the end, she did not say a single word to Leah. In the end, she was still unwilling to call him Daddy Leah, right? Not long after, Leah heard the sound of Gu Mengmeng washing up, followed by the sound of her eating. The corners of his lips curved upwards. Luckily, she did not reject the food because he was the one who prepared it. Leah slowly slid along the side of the bed and sat on the floor. He bent one leg against the floor, while the other was arched. Both his arms were casually placed on top of his own legs. His gaze was fixated on the spot where Gu Mengmeng had just walked away from. With his back facing Elvis, he muttered, "Congratulations, you've leveled up." Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling, little Su Yanxi from QQ Reading for tipping 99 reading points. And thank you to the little darling G9G9 Heng from Xiaoxiang Academy for tipping the recommendation votes. Thank you to everyone for using all kinds of methods to support Susu. I have seen every message you left and I will remember every tip you gave me. Chapter 241. Elvis, who was lying on the bed, did not give her any response. Luckily, Leah did not seem to be anticipating Elvis's reply as he continued muttering to himself, "I saw those stray beasts that ran out. They fought each other because of the uneven distribution of food. In the end, all of them were severely injured and froze to death outside. Lee's voice was calm, as if he was listening attentively to the sound of Gu Mengmeng drinking her soup. His eyes were filled with gentleness, as if he could see the little person eating through the wall. It's impossible for them to hurt you. So, you purposely got injured to create an opportunity for me, right? As Leah said, he turned his head slightly to look at Elvis, who was lying on the bed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Thank you. And, don't worry, there's nothing in this world that is worth me giving in to Gu Mengmeng. This time, I won't let her suffer anymore." After Leah finished speaking, he slowly stood up and walked out. Gu Mengmeng had already finished eating and he was going to clear the dishes. Meanwhile, Elvis, who was lying on the bed, secretly turned his head to face the other side of the wall. Even though he could not see anything, he still did not want to see Gu Mengmeng being intimate with others. Gu Mengmeng. Leah walked out and saw Gu Mengmeng trying her best to pluck the snow off the entrance of the cave. The wound that she had painstakingly applied herbs on was about to bleed again. Leah grabbed Gu Mengmeng's wrist and frowned at her reddened fingertips, asking, "Are you trying to distract me so that I won't have time to take care of Elvis?" Gu Mengmeng pulled her hand back with all her might, not caring that her wrist was almost dislocated, forcing Leah to let go. Then, she placed her hands behind her back and turned her face away, saying, "It's just a small injury, I don't have to deal with it and it will heal on its own. Just focus on taking care of Elvis, don't worry about me." With that, Gu Mengmeng was about to walk into the cave to melt the snow that she had painstakingly plucked into a pot before heating it up, so that she could wash the bowls after she finished eating. But before she could take a step, Leah grabbed her shoulders from behind. He did not hug her, just held her shoulders with both hands and prevented her from leaving. "What are you doing?" Gu Mengmeng twisted a few times and realized that she could not break free at all. Moreover, she would not be injured no matter how hard she struggled in this position, so she could not force Leah to retreat. Leah didn't reply and just held Gu Mengmeng in place until she gave up struggling. He then said, "If you just want to wash the dishes, you can leave it to me. It's natural for a male to take care of a female. You don't have to hurt yourself just to argue with me." Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes and sneered. "It's an illness to think too highly of yourself. You have to be cured. If you hadn't quarreled with me, you could have left the cutlery here, as before, and waited for me to clear it." Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath and said slowly, "I don't have the habit of letting other males take care of me. Mengmeng. If there's nothing else, please let go. I still have to take care of Elvis after I'm done washing the dishes." Leah could not loosen his grip. The touch he yearned for day and night had finally come true. How could he dare to let go? He knew very well that as long as he loosened his fingers, she would slip away. If he wanted to touch her again, how difficult would it be? Out of topic. Chapter 242. Leah said with a trembling voice, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that I will pledge my loyalty to you for the rest of my life. From today onwards, only you are my deity, my life, my everything." Gu Mengmeng's body was so stiff that she could no longer move. Even breathing became difficult, let alone struggling. She thought that she had shed enough tears for Leah, she thought that she would not cry for him anymore. But at this moment, her eyes were still red. Leah slowly inched forward until he finally filled her in his arms again. That warm touch made him feel as if his skin was scalded. Pain, suffocating pain. The blood in his entire body seemed to have frozen at that moment. His eyes, ears, mouth and nose, all his senses were focused on her tiny figure and nothing else. Leah buried his head into Gu Mengmeng's neck, his voice trembling uncontrollably. No matter how much he wanted to maintain her loving smile, he could not succeed in the end. "Do you think that the words I said back then were all fake? I have never been someone else's male, never. Gu Mengmeng, I beg you, at least take back this sentence, all right?" Gu Mengmeng stubbornly wiped away the tears on her face and stepped on Li's foot forcefully, trying to force him to let go. Li snorted, but his hands did not move at all. He was still hugging Gu Mengmeng tightly, stubbornly refusing to let go. Gu Mengmeng trembled and took 2 deep breaths before forcing herself to speak again. She said word by word, "It no longer matters to me whether you are someone else's male or not. Because I am already someone else's female. This is a fact that cannot be changed." Pain. Every cell in his body was frantically transmitting the message of pain. Li's instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages made him want to turn around and escape, but it was as if his legs were rooted to the ground and he could not move an inch. He did not want to let go, he did not want to let go. Because he knew better than anyone, how much regret, how much suffering and how much worse it would be to die after letting go. He would rather be in pain, he would rather be sliced to death by her words one by one than to let her go and then die with endless regret. If I'm really just indifferent to you, then just accept me. Leah rubbed Gu Mingming's neck gently, using his face to feel her skin and her temperature. He was so eager to prove that the person in his arms was the real Gu Mengmeng, and not an illusion that he had imagined in the countless moments when she was not around. Elvis took good care of me and I lived a happy life. On account that we used to be in a relationship, please maintain the demeanor of an ex-boyfriend and don't disturb my life. Gu Mengmeng struggled again, but Leah seemed to have steeled his heart and refused to loosen his grip even a little. No, I don't want to be a gentleman. I want you. You can't afford it. Gu Mengmeng screamed at the top of her lungs, "Don't play the prodigal son game with me. Let me tell you, Gu Mengmeng, don't want things that have been touched by others." Leah shook his head and suddenly turned Gu Mengmeng's body to face her. His usually affectionate eyes were now filled with uneasiness and pleading, unable to ignore the mist in his eyes. His brows furrowed into a dead knot and the pain in his heart made it hard for him to breathe. But even so, he still tried his best to smile. "Other than you, I won't let anyone else touch me. This body, this soul, this heart, they all belong to you. Aside from the topic, I say, can you guys have some standpoint? When I was nice to Leah, you guys said that Elvis was too pitiful and asked him to quickly take over. Now that I've let Elvis take over, you guys are saying that Leah is too pitiful. Who exactly are you guys supporting? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Consider your standpoint and be more ruthless to the other. In this world, there is no sorrow greater than a dead heart and no fortune greater than forgetting each other." Chapter 243. The last time Nina hugged my waist, I have already burned the beast skin dress that she touched. If you still feel that it's dirty, I will peel off this layer of skin from my waist, alright? As Leah spoke, he retracted one hand from Gu Mingming's shoulder. Then, he made his fingernails grow long and sharp in front of Gu Mengmeng, reaching towards his abdomen without hesitation. Gu Mengmeng did not suspect that Leah was lying to her at all. She knew very well how crazy and uncontrollable the males in the beast world could do for females. Almost without thinking, Gu Mengmeng had already grabbed onto Li's wrist with both hands, preventing him from hurting her. Leah suddenly smiled. His smile was so joyful and humble. Tears welled up in his eyes as he asked carefully, "You still feel heartache after all, right? You lied to me when you said that I don't care, right? You purposely gave me the cold shoulder, ignored me and made me feel sad just to punish me, right?" Gu Mengmeng turned her head to the side and did not look at Li's expression. Looking at his face that was close to despair, she did not know how long she could be tough for. She wanted to retract her hand but Leah held on to it. He took a deep breath and slowly transformed his white and fluffy big tail. He carefully wrapped it around Gu Mingming's waist and pulled her towards him. With his 2 empty hands, he held on to Gu Mingming's hands with one and lifted her chin with the other. That pair of narrow and affectionate eyes stared straight into Gu Mingming's pupils. The deep emotions in his eyes swept over like the ocean, not allowing her to escape. Don't blame me, don't hate me. Completely erasing me from your memory, as if we had never met before, is the cruelest way for you to punish me, right? Leah slowly placed Gu Mingming's hand on his left chest. He held back his tears and said, I know I did wrong, I should accept the punishment. But Gu Mingming, my heart hurts so much, it really hurts so much. Let's change the punishment method, alright? Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and refused to speak. Because she used too much force, her lips started bleeding. Leah was extremely flustered. In a moment of desperation, he kissed Gu Mingming's lips, using his tongue to pry open her pearly white teeth and replace her lower lip. Blood, wantonly mixed together, it was not clear whether it was hers or his. The pain that came from the tip of his tongue was unbearable, but how could it compare to watching her hurt him? If this was the new punishment she decided to bestow upon him, he would gladly endure it. Leah kissed until Gu Mingming's tears flowed down her cheeks and burned his skin. Leah slowly released Gu Mingming's lips and looked at her bloodshot eyes from crying. She was staring straight at him, but he could no longer see any trace of adoration in her eyes. I kissed you without permission, I apologize. Gu Mingming did not wait for Leah to finish and gave her answer without hesitation. Leah lowered his gaze slowly. His sadness had already exceeded the limits of what he could endure. No matter how hard he tried, it was impossible for him to pretend that nothing had happened. Leah was silent for a long time. Mingming, I don't want to apologize. I want to confess. I love you, more than anything. Don't abandon me, okay? Gu Mingming struggled with all her might and successfully shook off Lee's hand. But her waist was still circled by Lee's big tail and she could not break free. She placed her hands by her sides and looked straight into Lee's eyes. I, Gu Mingming, am not a toy that you can have and throw away whenever you want. You were the one who abandoned me back then, so don't pretend to be hurt now. If you really love me that much, you shouldn't have abandoned me back then. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Shaoxiang Academy, Roman Chamomile, for your evaluation votes then. I saw some readers say that I spouted too much nonsense in the author's words, so I tried my best not to be long-winded. Let me add on, all the content in the author's words is free and will not be counted in the paid word count. So don't misunderstand, Susu did not use nonsense to count the word count. On the contrary, the mini-theater and the author's point of view, content written by Susu in the author's words are all included as free content. If these independent mini-theaters were to be placed in the main text, it would be a little abrupt, so they are placed separately. I hope you guys will like it. Chapter 244. Gu Mingming squeezed every word out through her clenched teeth. She pointed at the large tail wrapped around her waist and said coldly, "Let go of me, or else I have 10,000 ways to make you regret." Such as. Leah calmed down when he saw Gu Mingming's furious look. He was not afraid of her arguing or throwing a tantrum. Even if she wanted to kill him to appease her anger, he was willing to let her dig out his heart and liver. What he was afraid of was that no matter what he did, Gu Mingming would not have any reaction, as if he was no longer important. The fact that he still had the ability to make her angry was already a huge piece of good news. Gu Mingming had to admit that it was just a vicious remark that she blurted out. But after being teased by Leah, she had no choice but to come up with a plan to make him believe that she would really do something crazy. Gu Mingming suddenly laughed coldly and said, for example, destroying your beloved tribe, hurting your beloved female, toppling everything you care about, except letting you live well. With me around, no one can hurt my beloved female. Leah caressed Gu Mingming's face gently and said with utmost tenderness, even if it's you, you can't. Gu Mengmeng slapped away Li's hand that was caressing her face and said, "Don't say that you love me, because you're not worthy." Leah did not say anything and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly. Seeing that she did not continue, he then slowly said, "But, even though I know I'm not worthy, I still love you." Gu Mengmeng's heart went numb. She did not know whether she was still in love or not behaving like a woman, but no matter which one it was not something she could accept. Taking 2 deep breaths, Gu Mengmeng tried her best to extricate herself from this atmosphere that Leah had made look like the breakup arena. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah and tried her best to speak in a calm tone. "I let you stay in the cave to treat Elvis, not for you to tease me. If you treat me like this again, please leave." She chased him away. Leah was taken aback. In the past, Gu Mengmeng had always stuck to him and would pounce on him whenever she saw him. Even when he went to Nina's house and did that act to make her sad, she still begged him to go home when she saw him. But now, she wanted him to leave. Leah knew that he might have forced Gu Mengmeng too hard today. She laughed at herself. Leah, who was the best at scheming people's hearts, actually lost his sense of propriety one day. Lowering his head, Leah finally let go of his tail and said with some grievance, "At first, I only wanted to help you wash the dishes." Gu Mengmeng looked at the cutlery that had long fallen to the ground. She turned around and said, "You can wash it if you want, it's just this once anyway. I won't eat anything you cook in the future." With that, Gu Mengmeng turned around and went deep into the cave to look for Elvis. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's back view, Leah suddenly lost all his energy. He sat cross-legged on the ground and hugged his large tail. After staying silent for a long time, he sighed and said, "Looks like you have also fallen out of favor. She used to like you so much, but now, she doesn't even want to look at you. It's me that implicated you." On the other hand, Gu Mengmeng curled up in Elvis's arms and buried her head into his chest. She started sobbing secretly and pulled Elvis's ear with one hand. However, she did not bear to use too much strength and could only complain while crying, "Why aren't you waking up? I really, really need you now. Why aren't you waking up to accompany me? Aside from the topic, why don't you let Leah come back every day? When I let him come back, you all cry, make a fuss and send me razor blades." Chapter 245. Elvis furrowed his brows tightly and clenched his fists before slowly relaxing them. He just quietly accompanied Gu Mengmeng, waiting for her to cry and fall into a deep sleep beside him. How many more times was he going to watch her cry for Leah? Pretending to be silent was the best he could do. Did he still have to personally ask her to take Leah as her partner? In the past, he could bear with the heartache and say such words. But now, he was ultimately selfish. After tasting the one and only bestowed by Gu Mengmeng, who would be willing to break it? He was not afraid of the dangers of the beast world. For Gu Mengmeng, he could shake the heavens and earth, become a deity or a demon. As long as he could protect her, he could do anything. But he was afraid of her tears. He could not bear to see her force herself to give up on Leah even though she clearly liked him. As long as she could be happy, he could accept Leah. He definitely could, but why was Xiao Meng crying in his arms, seeking his warmth and support? Elvis slowly opened his eyes and used the beast skin to cover Gu Mengmeng. Then, he got off the ground and walked to the outermost room. Leah was still staring blankly at his own tail. Without saying a word, Elvis went up and punched Lee's face. Leah did not resist and flew out, crashing into the wall before sliding down. Wiping the corners of her mouth, she raised her head to look at Elvis, asking, "Are you angry because I wasted the opportunity you created, or because you're afraid that after I really reconcile with Meng Meng, I'll split your love?" Elvis took a step forward and strangled Lee's neck. He stared coldly into his eyes and said, "I am angry because you made her cry again." Leah was experiencing the feeling of suffocation, but he just smiled. He did not seem to be afraid of the lack of oxygen or even death. Elvis suddenly let go and turned to walk into the cave. Leo looked at Elvis's back view and asked in surprise, "You're not going to kill me? Or throw me out?" Elvis did not turn back and just said with his back facing Leah, "I won't do anything that will make Xiao Meng sad." After Elvis finished speaking, he did not stay any longer and directly returned to the inner room. He started a fire and set up a pot of ginger soup. He also wanted to be like Leah and make lots of delicious food for Gu Mengmeng, but his talent was limited and he really could not do anything. This was the only recipe that he would not mess up. Compared to the leftovers he saw outside just now, it seemed a lot shabbier, but this was the best thing he could prepare for Gu Mengmeng. When Gu Mengmeng woke up, a long time had passed. The moment she opened her eyes, she realized that Elvis had already woken up. She jumped up in joy and flew into Elvis's arms like a butterfly, hugging him tightly and refusing to let go. Elvis patted Gu Mengmeng's back lightly and said, "Sorry for making you worry." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "As long as you are fine, I will be thankful. I don't care about anything else, as long as you are fine." Elvis's heart felt warm and guilty at the same time. Did he make Xiao Meng worried because he pretended to be unconscious? What a pity, his difficulties were not worth mentioning. The energy I stored in third level was too much, so I lost control when I was leveling up. My body could not withstand the explosive energy, so I fainted. Actually, it's fine. Look, aren't I fine now? Aside from the topic. Chapter 246. She only heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that other than the wound on his back, there were no other abnormalities. She threw herself back into Elvis's arms and hugged his waist, saying, "You scared me to death that day. You were perfectly fine and suddenly collapsed. I thought I was going to become a widow after just getting married." Elvis shook his head and said, "You scared me to death that day." As Gu Mengmeng said, she punched Elvis in his arms and said, "Don't scare me like this next time, do you understand?" Elvis let her do whatever she wanted. He felt especially blissful even after being hit. He nodded his head cautiously and replied, "All right, I won't scare you in the future." Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis and took 2 deep breaths. Then, she suddenly remembered that Leo was still outside. She cleared her throat awkwardly and said, "That I let Leah stay in our cave." Before Elvis could interrupt, Gu Mengmeng had already sat up straight like a spring. She looked into Elvis's eyes and continued explaining in a flustered manner, "Don't misunderstand, it's not what you think it is." Elvis was taken aback and asked with a smile, "What I think?" Gu Mengmeng choked on her words. She pursed her lips and said, "No matter what you think, it's not what you think." "Oh." Elvis smiled and nodded his head, indicating that he understood. Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's hand and said seriously, "You were unconscious that day and covered in blood. I was terrified and was especially worried that you wouldn't wake up. I was also afraid that those weird fellows would return. I was really helpless." Then, at this moment, Leah appeared at the entrance of the cave. "He agreed to treat you on the condition that he stays in our cave until spring. I thought that there was no reason for him to risk his life in the wind and snow to do something for us, so I agreed. That's all, really, there's nothing else. I always believe in Xiao Meng's words." Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's hand and gently caressed her uneasy face. She definitely did not know how guilty she looked. She was obviously speaking the truth, but she could not make it seem as though it was a matter of course. Gu Mengmeng asked carefully, "You aren't angry?" Elvis asked back, "Why should I be angry?" Gu Mengmeng twisted her fingers and said, "It's the matter of making the decision to let Leah stay in our cave." Elvis's heart warmed and he smiled. "The 2 of us have already made it, so strictly speaking, this cave is yours." You can let whoever you want to stay in and chase whoever you want to leave. No one has the right to question your decision, not even me. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked, who says I can't? As a couple, everything had to be discussed. If you feel uncomfortable, of course, you can say it. It was my fault to let someone else stay in my house. If it were me, I would definitely feel uncomfortable. I can understand if you are angry, but can you not be angry for too long? It was really a special situation back then. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's little shoulders and looked straight into her eyes, saying, I'm not angry, really not. This time, it was Gu Mingming's turn to be confused. She tilted her head and looked at Elvis, asking, I let my ex-boyfriend stay at my house, and when you were unconscious, aren't you angry? Aren't you afraid that he's your next-door neighbor? Next-door neighbor. Elvis did not understand. He was very sure that there was only his cave in his territory. Next door seemed to be the cave for storing dried salted fish. Was the salted fish nicknamed next-door neighbor Old Wang? But why should he be afraid? And even if it was salted, Leo was a salted fox, why would he be a salted fish? I don't understand. I don't understand, aside from the topic. Chapter 247. Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and said angrily, let me ask you, what if I lose control and pounce on Leo when you are unconscious? Aren't you worried at all? Elvis thought for a while and shook his head, replying seriously, if you want to keep him as your partner, I will support it. You don't have to worry that we won't get along well, because we have been adapting to this kind of life since a long time ago, so, if you like him. Wait a minute. Gu Mengmeng looked up and made a stop gesture. She frowned and looked at Elvis, asking, what kind of this kind of life do you mean you have been adapting to since a long time ago? Elvis could vaguely hear Lee's hurried footsteps rushing towards them. Their years of tacit understanding made him deeply understand that he seemed to have fallen into some serious danger. Elvis clearly knew that in a situation where the enemy was in the dark and he was in the light, it was not wise to act recklessly. So he slowly took a small step back, then another step back. His eyes were fixed on Gu Mengmeng the entire time, not daring to blink even once. Leo braked suddenly outside the entrance of the cave, then took 2 deep breaths to make himself look calm. He then walked in and pretended to be nonchalant, saying, Mengmeng, there are still 2 things you haven't done on the condition you promised me. Gu Mingming's lips curled up and she sneered, are you here to save the situation? This is this kind of life that you two have practiced and practiced. Leo looked at Elvis, who was still in a daze and did not know what he did wrong. He really felt a heart-wrenching feeling of mourning for his misfortune and being angry at his incompetence. Taking a deep breath, he smiled, since when did we practice anything? It's just that Elvis is the tribe leader and I am the witch doctor, so we spend more time together, so naturally we are partners who have a better rapport. Gu Mengmeng stretched out a finger and gestured for him to keep quiet. Then, she pointed at Elvis and hooked her finger, saying, hubby, come here. Elvis instinctively felt that it was dangerous, but since Xiao Meng was calling him, how could he not go over? So, Elvis braced himself and walked back to Gu Mengmeng's side. Gu Mengmeng stroked Elvis's face with a smile, then, she suddenly pulled his ear and said, we're both 1,000-year-old foxes, why are you playing strange stories from a Chinese studio in front of me? Tell me honestly, what kind of life is this? Leo grimaced when he saw Elvis's ears being pulled up. He instinctively covered his own ears. He could feel the pain even from 2 feet away. Elvis tilted his head and followed Gu Mingming's strength to tilt his face upwards. He gritted his teeth in pain and said, Xiao Meng, don't be angry. I'll speak all right, I'll speak. Only then did Gu Mengmeng let go. She dusted her hands before wrapping them in front of her chest. Hugging her shoulders, she straightened her neck and looked at Elvis. Speak. Afraid that Gu Meng Meng would get angry again, Elvis covered his ears and said, Leah said that according to the records, the chances of us getting the messenger of the beast deity is very high. In order to keep the messenger of the beast deity in the tribe and protect her well, the best way is for both of us to mate with the messenger of the beast deity. For this, we've lived together for many years to train our rapport and coordination so that we can take better care of you after mating. Gu Meng Meng raised her hand again and interrupted Elvis's words. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Elvis. She smiled a little creepily and said, When you guys were practicing, you didn't know that I'm the messenger of the beast deity, right? Aside from the topic, the recommendation would start today and it would last for 3 days. In these 3 days, there would be 6 chapters a day. After the recommendation ends, it would almost be on the shelves. So, little babies who are good at reading should hurry up and not save too many chapters. Then, you're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.